Would you look at that? It would finally seem that the prince has overcome the king. What's up, guys? I'm Pencil here, and here we are to do a breakdown/review for chapter 264 of Jujutsu Kaisen, which is known as the decisive battle in the uninhabited demon fist of Shinjuku Part 36. And ladies and gentlemen, this chapter, it got a whole lot in it. But unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, we have so little time. So let's not waste any more time and let's hop right into it. Enemy, are you ready? 3, 2, 1, go. What's up, guys? That guy with a pencil here. Fun fact, I dropped the pencil. Fun fact, I have it on me, and I keep it on me at all times. And another fun fact, we've got 4 sections. We got 4 minutes each. We're going to talk about the story. We're going to talk about the characters. We're going to talk about the scaling, and we're going to talk about the future. Because this chapter's got a whole lot of all 4. So let's not waste any more time. Let me start this 4-minute timer right now. Let's talk about the story. Now, this is undeniably, unironically, and pretty indubitably one of, if not flat out, the biggest hardcore, hardline story. I got cramp in my toe. Please, why are they getting more frequent? But this is one of the most advanced chapters in terms of, please go away. You're my pinky toe. Why do you even have muscles to cramp? But with that being the case, this chapter is one of the most significant in terms of genuine story progression that we've had in maybe a year. Mainly because it is the first time where it seems like Sukuna, no matter what happens next chapter, no matter what gets pulled out, it seems like Sukuna will genuinely be put in a scenario he's 1, not prepared for, and 2, does not have an easy way out of. For the entire past year, a lot of things that we as the community has been going through is, okay, Sukuna looks like he's in a really, really bad spot, but he ain't really, though. He was still in his own body. He just incarnated. He still had a heart that he could pump. He still had other arms he could use. He could get his domain expansion back. He could remap his brain. Like, no matter what, it always felt like, despite the progress characters were making in the story, progress wasn't actually being made in the story. The biggest exceptions to that in the past year run was actually the Takaba and Kenny fight, where Kenny ultimately did get removed from the narrative. I put that in quotation marks because I'm a coper, but with that being the case, the removal, presumably, of Sukuna from the body of Megami Fushiguro, to the point where his own flesh, or his very soul, within Yuji's domain is not being properly reflected, more so being reflected as Yuji-kuna rather than Meguna, or his four-armed hand-body self. That's huge. This is the hardest and most concrete thing we've gotten in over a year. So, that's a 5 out of 5 for story already. And for the rest of the story, it's gotten what a lot of the fan base has really wanted. While a lot of us do admit that we've loved the Shinjuku Showdown, a lot of people will admit they don't like the Shinjuku Showdown. I've been in the former camp. I've been loving it. I've been loving what it's done for Sukuna's character, other characters from Yuji to Todo to Angel to Gojo to every other character that's appeared in the manga. But a big thing that me and a lot of the other Itadori investors were itching for, scratching for, fiending for, was a proper 1v1 between Yuji and Sukuna. And what does the end of the chapter state in plain text? Plain, actual, juicy, scrumdiddlyumptious text. Come on, Sukuna, let's go. This decisive one-on-one heads into an uncharted domain. We're getting the one-on-one. I will say this firmly. Yuji will... No. There's no universe. Yuji would have never made it here without the numerous sacrifices of every single character that showed up and showed out. You remove one character, one, from the gauntlet that Yuji has run through ever since he was introduced at the end of the Gojo fight, and something goes wrong. You remove Kashimo, something goes wrong. You remove Higuruma, something goes wrong. You remove Maki, something goes wrong. You remove Yuta, something especially goes wrong. You remove Gojo, something especially goes wrong. Yuji, of course, did not make it here by himself. But regardless, as an Itadori investor, on a story front, I am happy that our main protagonist is finally getting his proper 1v1 in whatever form that takes with the main antagonist. Fatty, hefty, juicy, scrumdiddlyumptious story progression that I've been itching and scratching and feeding for all the way since chapter 1. That is good stuff. That's solid story progression. That gets my toes curled up. I'm not going to curl them again because I'm afraid of my pinky toe cramping one more time. But with that being the case, any other story progression, I mean, remove HANA and Todo from the fight. That's the big thing. Once again, we reduce it down to the 1v1. Yuji versus Sukuna, which is something that a lot of people were complaining about when we had the 1v1 between Yuji and Sukuna about 6 or 7 chapters ago, and then it leads to the loss of Choso. But now, we're here. No one else is there, and it's very unlikely that Goda or Maki, or if Toto's even still alive, if Hana's still even alive, though Suguna says he has to go get their last breath later. Regardless, we're good. I'm out of time, so let's move on to characters. This chapter, now that I have translations, does a couple things that I love for the characters. Number one, let me talk a little bit about Hana. And admittedly, at first, I was a little bit nettled. Mainly because I'm like, gosh darn it, Hana, I was hoping you were going to beat the plot device allegations. And, kind of, sort of, maybe. But with that being the case, I'm fine with it because this is Hana giving it her all. It's her giving it her best for the person she cares for. That's what this chapter, in a way, is all about. She still stood there when Suguna decided to just punch the ground, use the tractor beam effect of her technique, and proceed to leap up towards her. She stayed there. She, in fact, had to be told to run away, to fall back, because she was that locked in. She felt that bad about what she had done that she was willing to risk her life and run the ones, if not really the ones, but run it with the King of Curses, and specifically had to be told to run away. That's good character work, especially for a character who fumbled the bag initially, fumbled the bag over 50 chapters ago, and led to the scenario we're in right now, because she could have ended the plot right then and there. I'm happy she showed up and showed out. Other character I'm really, really happy for, even if it's in the most sad way possible, Todo Aoi. A character who I was convinced was gone for the longest, came back, and not only got the King of Curses to properly acknowledge him as a Jujutsu sorcerer, but to actually say, remember and recognize his full name. What does he say here? Hey, big dog, I know you built like that, Machi. This is something you cannot help. Wait, where is it? He says Toto's name. I don't know where it is in the chapter. I found it in the live reaction really quickly. I don't know where it is. But essentially, he does say Ao Toto's name, and that gets me real happy. And I greatly appreciate that. That gives Toto character wrap up that's beautiful. Once again, Toto, he definitely didn't need character development. Heck, I would be perfectly fine if he hadn't even shown up again. But he showed up and showed out. Beautiful character work. Yuji, I'll save him for last. Suguna's character work is wonderful here because it feels like the first time, more than he ran into Gojo, more than he ran into Maki, to Higuruma, to Kashimo, to all the different characters, like the 15 different characters he's been fighting for the past year. It's the first time I genuinely felt like Sukuna is confused. He actually asks, what is this? This is a side to the King of Curses I feel like we haven't seen. To one way or another, even when he's encountered techniques he didn't understand, he had an idea. He had a reference. He had something that he could draw it back to and rationalize it for. He rationalized Higuruma's technique. He rationalized Kashimo's technique. He figured everything. He even worked around the Limitless and the 10 Shadows. Two very complex and very powerful techniques, pretty much on first sight. But this is the first time Sukuna has genuinely felt like a character who doesn't know what's going on in the same degree that we as the audience generally do not understand what's going on. And that's perfect. Like I said, the Shinjuku Showdown is Sukuna, the character, the show. And to finally see this side of Sukuna, a wide-eyed, confused, perturbed, and annoyed Sukuna sitting in a train station chair. Beautiful. That's what I like. I like it when we get to see all sides of the character. And the only thing we're missing now is his real name and his backstory. That's it. But even then, I'm perfectly fine if we don't get those, because as a character, how he would react to certain situations, how he reacts to stimuli, we've gotten all of that. That beautiful, chef's kiss, delicious, scrumdiddlyumptious. Then, of course, we have to talk about Yuji Todori. His culmination, his awakening, his arriving to this place is cathartic, to say the very least. Him finally catching Sukuna unawares. The uninteresting, boring brat that had nothing to offer, finally getting his moment of moments to reveal the peak of Jujutsu in the face of a king who underestimated the prince for oh so long. And be put in a place where he can tell Sukuna what to do. Beautiful. It ain't the most complex character work, but it is wonderful to finally have it. But of course, time is up, so we gotta talk about the scaling. Now, I've been hearing it from the heavens to the earth, to beneath the earth, to the depths of space, to the bottoms of the oceans, to the peak of the heavens. I've been hearing it everywhere. Yuji top 5, Yuji top 3, Yuji this, Yuji that, Yuji this, Yuji that. I'll give it somewhat. Now he's opened doors to conversations that weren't there before, and especially while we don't know what his domain does, this is real good stuff. But I do have to drape pretty much everything in this chapter with a hefty layer of context. The big reason I'm hesitant to suddenly start all of Yuji Shmi, in terms of putting him in the top 5, putting him in the top 3, doing all this, doing all that, is mainly because this is still, as we see, a super duper soul weakened, body control struggling Sukuna, who also only allows himself to get hit twice. He gets hit fresh out the Jacob's Ladder because he wasn't expecting Yuji to straight up chase him while being burned alive. He gets slobber knocked, grabbed, and slammed through a building, but then Yuji does not hit him for the rest of the shot. Like, look, Yuji does not hit. Whiffs. Barely dodges, only to get hit again. He falls for setups. Sukuna gets his RCT back, and the beating gets worse. His punches are getting caught. He's getting misdirected. He doesn't activate his technique in time. He gets double body slammed into a knee to the face. He rolls, whiffs, ends up cutting the ground open and trying to get Sukuna off guard. He can't because Sukuna dodges. The only reason Yuji lands another hit on Sukuna this entire chapter is because he used domain expansion when Sukuna's technique was very specifically down. Very difficult to use. He could not domain back. So, he's up. The domain goes crazy. But until we know what it does, until we know its conditions, I'm still skeptical. Of course, this domain is very, very effective, as Sukuna admits, against incarnated types. Because remember, this is the soul type dismantle. But realize, against Maki, this does nothing. Against Guard, this does nothing. Against Yuta, this does nothing. Because none of those characters are tied to the soul. The only hypothetical soul of the heavy hitters that could hypothetically be affected is Yuta's because of his connection to Rika. But even then, I don't buy that. As a Yuta glazer, I just don't buy it. So there are so many other characters who I still think give Yuji them palms just because we haven't seen what his domain does yet. Does him having a domain open up doors that were solidly locked away before? Absolutely. Obviously, characters like Kashimo, characters like Ryu, characters like Earl, a bunch of characters who may have once been able to give Yuji that work because either A, they have possibly better stats or better instant execution moves in the case of Kashimo, or just file domains in the case of Ryu and Earl. Now, the door is open, because we don't know what their domains do either, so now we just have to assume they clash with Yuji, and then it just becomes Yuji versus them, and they're incarnated sorcerers, so mink, 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 mink. So Yuji's gotten better. In my opinion, he's definitely been top 10 for a while now. But now, he's knocking on that top 5 door. He's knocking real hard. And depending on what his domain does, whether it's an application of Shrine, whether it's an application of some whatever this is, whether this is even a domain or if it's actually just Yuji and Sukuna both being dead, regardless, the scaling is iffy. I'm not going to glaze Yuji too much, but he definitely, by having a domain, has gone up drastically. But don't get too crazy. Yuta should still watch. Don't get too crazy. This shouldn't affect Manga. Don't get too... Hikari still loses. But with that being the case, the other little bit of scaling I do want to address. Yeah, this does kind of hard confirm something we already knew for a while. That ultimately, your body and how well it's held together does affect your output. That's what Sukuna explicitly notes here. 1, Hana's just weaker than original Angel, apparently. And 2, because of losing one of their arms, their output is not the same. So if you remove a sorcerer's limbs or any major part of their body, their output will drop. They will be weaker. So that's another nice little scaling thing that does get confirmed. But now, time is up. We must talk about the future. Now, the future does seem to be this 1v1, but obviously that's the main thing the future's about. It's going to be whatever Yuji's domain is, or whatever this afterlife scenario is, whatever you think. I've seen back and forth whether people think this is Yuji's equivalent to the airport that he dragged Sukuna into, and both characters ultimately ended up perishing in some weird dual way, like Yuji didn't know how to exclude himself from his own sure hit, and both ended up getting sent to the afterlife, and or this is Yuji's domain. That's what the future is naturally going to be about. But there are some things that are still technically needing to be wrapped up that I do want to highlight. Number 1, we have not cut back to Hikari versus Urume in like months. I think it's over 20 not 20, because that'd be 244. I think we're like 15 chapters out from the last sighting of Hikari versus Urume. No. It was the furnace chapter where we saw them. Urume was basically undamaged. Hikari looked extremely damaged. So however long ago that was, which I believe is about 8 chapters ago. That was the last time we saw him. That fight technically still isn't over. Another thing. The merger. Its whereabouts and Tengen's whereabouts completely unknown right now. Sure, Sukuna seems to be cut free from his original body, and Megumi may be on the floor right now, screaming for his life and for his mama and for all the darkness and sadness because his sister's gone, and separated from Sukuna, having curled up a whole bunch of fingers. But where he is, we don't know. Where Tengen is, we don't know. If the merger's just done, it's done. Obviously, naturally. I wouldn't be shocked if the plotline sort of just got dropped, because it seemed like it would be too much, especially for a cast that's so heavily weakened after fighting Sukuna. But that's still a thing. Gota's fate is entirely unknown. He does not get a single mention or appearance in this chapter. And sure, that's fine in a way, because Yuji was able to handle it. But at the same time, Remember, Yuta does not understand Kenny's technique. We do not understand Kenny's technique. And I don't trust Kenny as far as I can throw. And very specifically, as people, my fellow Kenny Copers has consistently brought up, Kenjaku taught everybody how to turn a portion of their body, or something that was theirs, into a cursed object. Do you mean to tell me he wouldn't know how to do that? And what happens, or what needs to be done for cursed objects to be, incarnated? Consumption. At least that's the case with Sugata, and it seems to be the case with a lot of other sorcerers. Even the death paintings get incarnated through consumption. What happened to Kenjaku's head? What allows Yuta to use his technique? Oh yeah, Rika ate it. Rika. The empty hub. So I'm just saying, there are a bunch of things still floating in the air of actual present plot things that seemingly need to be wrapped up or at least explained. From Kenny to Goda to the merger. And Megami's own state. All that is still good to go and still on the table. And that's why, while I'm happy that this is the case, that Sugata now seemingly enough is trapped in the train station, I wouldn't get overly excited. Because I don't trust Gege as far as I can throw them. And for this in particular, I still don't trust it. Remember, Sugata's soul is noted to be extremely, extremely, extremely strong, and while Yuji's soul is also obviously that way, there's still definitely a lot of questions on what this will actually do. Remember, the battle is not over. The decisive 1v1 heads into an uncharted domain. So sure, they're both fully healed, Sugata's down 2 arms, and Yuji doesn't have his weird gauntlet things that never got explained. But I wouldn't count Sugata out just yet. He's a character who's consistently surpassed our expectations in terms of what he's going to be capable of doing, and I wouldn't be shocked if he did it again. And again. And again. And a 3rd time. And a 4th time. And a 5th time. And a 6th time. So, once again, I'm saying get your hopes up and be happy for my boy, but take it with a grain of salt. I think there's a reason we don't get a break next week. We're clearly entering the climax of the climax of the climax, but danger still lingers around. And that's both a blessing and a curse. But isn't that all Jujutsu Kaisen? The good and the bad, the negative and the positive, the beginning and the end. And it seems like the end has drawn near. And that's why I'm out of time. Why didn't you glow up? You should have glown up. I think because I have a low power mode. But essentially, we have made it to the end of this review. If you made it all the way to the end of this review, please do me a favor and leave No. A soul. No. That's too complicated. Broken souls. Leave broken, as in when you shatter something, it's broken. Souls, as in, the soul of Yuji, the soul of Sugata. Souls in the comment section down below. I'd like to thank you so much for watching. Please remember to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. And make sure that notification bell so you don't miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon below where you can support me for as low as $1. Get them on. Exclusive video to get things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. You can now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Some of those perks will include the live reaction to this very chapter, ad-free variations of all my videos, and if you become a $25 Patreon or $25 member, you can order whatever video you want. Also, I do have a link to my Ko-Fi in the description down below, where you can drop 5 beans for a short video, 25 beans for a long video, or any beans at all. Any support is always greatly appreciated. But now, I'd like to thank you guys so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That Guy with the Pencil, writing off. I'd like to thank you to our $3 members, Zena, Greyhound, Astro, Eternal Flame, NMA, Real Rare, G Prosper, Red Wolf 4765, and Paris Arnold. I'd like to give another big ol' thank you to our $5 patrons, Sean, Sammy, Midnight Lord 21, Kevin Encarnacion, Josh Brown, and A+A. And I'd like to give a great big thank you to our $7 members, Autumn Mornings Lazo, Fine, and That Guy. And I'd like to give a great big thank you to our $10 members, Robbie Uchiha, Jay Warrior, and Akid's Void. And I'd like to give big, hefty, juicy thank yous to our $10 patrons, Panda Goat, Michael Williamson, Metal Solid Crisis, Joaquin Munoz, and Idem Okami. And I'd like to give the biggest, juiciest, meatiest, sloppiest, and heftiest thank you of them all to our $25 patron, Calvin Elder.